I couldn't make this video without addressing the recent tragic news. Jeremy Bulloch, the actor who portrayed Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, has passed away at the age of 75. There's no way I couldn't address this right away, and it's unfortunate that lately it seems we're losing so many original trilogy actors. We have so much to thank him for. He brought to life a character that became instantly iconic and became like a cult classic character, and he became a fan favorite for decades afterward. Fan groups have popped up that all wear his armor. We kind of have him to thank for this show, if you think about it. Without the popularity of his character, I don't think George would have gone back and elaborated on who the Mandalorians were, because we knew that his armor was called Mandalorian armor, but then George took it upon himself to go back and flesh all that stuff out. Of course, at the time, in canon, he wasn't technically a Mandalorian, but that's been changed now. So yeah, without him and the character he played, the show probably wouldn't exist. And now, like, the doors have been blown wide open, like, in terms of the lore about the Mandalorians, starting in the EU, and then with this show, they've really delved into it. And the timing of it is just unbelievable. We just had Boba get reintroduced just a few episodes ago, and so it was kind of a weird feeling to hear that he died, because it feels like he's still here, kind of, because he just came back in a few episodes ago. I really hope maybe this happened. I don't know. I'm hoping the producers of the show were able to show him like a rough cut of those episodes before he passed. It would be great if he got to see the return of his character. And Tamora Morrison is doing a great job of carrying on his legacy, because I think he also can be underappreciated, because Tamora redubbed his lines in Empire and Return of the Jedi, so people forget who was actually under the suit for most of the time. So pour one out for Jeremy Bulloch, the original Boba Fett. We'll miss you, man. So I figured before I started, I think we should talk about and address that, and let's give it a moment of silence for him. Alright, so on to the actual episode. So now that I've fully emotionally recovered from that episode, from the finale, and after I made that video of my initial shock and awe in it, I can now, hopefully, be more coherent in my thoughts about it. So let's just go chronologically in terms of how the episode went. It hits the ground running immediately with the Slave Ones chasing a Lambda shuttle. Hearing those laser blasts from the Slave One never gets old. I think personally it has the most iconic design of like how it looks, but then also the sounds it makes are also iconic. Like just hearing it do flybys, of course the seismic charges, and then the lasers, the main laser cannons, all are just so iconic. He takes down the Lambda shuttle with an ion blast, which I guess I just wasn't sure. I didn't realize the Slave One had ion cannons, but maybe most ships do. I don't know. I wonder if this guy knows that it's Boba Fett, because he's like, oh, I don't have a death wish, do you? Look at that shot, dude. What an amazing shot of, like, that would be terrifying, seeing the galaxy's most notorious bounty hunter's ship, like, just filling your entire view screen. I would be crapping my pants right about now. It's nice to see more Dr. Pershing. I hope he comes back later in the show at some point, because you can tell he's not, like, fully a villain. He kind of is, like, kind of stuck in the job that he does. Like, he sometimes doesn't seem like he wants to actually do what he's doing, but he's kind of been forced to do this. He was probably one of those people that basically was told, you either join the Empire or die, and he just reluctantly had to. I'm sure that happened to a lot of them. Can someone explain to me what dropper means? They've called her Rebel Dropper, and like all these, like they've made this reference multiple times, and I don't know what it means. Maybe someone in the comments can explain it. I don't know. That is brutal. Like, you don't really see that much in Star Wars, like just someone just straight up shooting someone in the back of the head, like execution style. It's really dark, to be honest. Just no mercy, shooting him in cold blood. No one can say that this show is for kids. I mean, it is for kids, but like it's not been kidified. So they confirm that he's a clone engineer, which we all knew from what he has, like a logo that we saw on Camino, I believe, on his shoulder. So he's probably worked there before. I wonder if we'll actually see Camino at some point. And then he's like taunting Cara Dune about how he saw Alderaan be destroyed, and he was on the first Death Star. Like, we already knew that they think of the rebels as terrorists, but like it's just interesting to hear them in this scene call them terrorists. The rescue. So I'll get to it later, obviously, but I've heard people point out that this title kind of has a double meaning. Like, it's about the rescue of Grogu, but then also it could mean like it's kind of a reference to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, like they're rescuing Star Wars from like the doldrums that it's been in. I like to think that it has two meanings. This planet is very interesting looking. Like it's got like these smokestacks and fields. It looks kind of like the Midwest. Like it looks kind of like where I live. It's not something we've really seen in Star Wars before. Some people thought it might have been Lothal, but there's no clarification of what planet this is. And that's really cool. We get to see a Mandalorian gauntlet, I believe is the name of that type of ship. I wonder if Din Djarin will get one of those for his new ship that he drives since the Razor Crest's gone, because he can't stay in the slave one forever. The obvious joke, of course, is two Mandos walking to a bar. I see an Aqualish back there, and next to that guy that looks like Dumbledore. Oh, that's cool. A Rodian. I think the last Disney era thing we saw a Rodian in was in Rogue One. I mean, it's a small little detail, but it's just nice to see that they populate their extras with familiar, like, Lucas era aliens. The one on the left, I'm not sure what that is. I think that's something probably from the sequel trilogy. And it's not fan service, like people say. Like, I'm going to make a video about what is and isn't fan service, because just throwing in an alien, a familiar alien species that lives in this galaxy, is not fan service. These things don't exist in a vacuum. You're going to see repeating species in a galaxy. It's such a dumb criticism. Oh yeah, I figured this would happen. They would run into Bo-Katan again. And what's-her-face? Koska Reeves. That other guy's gone, the one that was with them in episode 3. I don't know where he is. This happened again where, like, when he went to get Cara Dune, she was kind of apprehensive about helping him, but then he says they have the child, and she just immediately switches, like, okay, fine, where are they? I'm going to kill them. It's pretty funny. It's like, that's all you got to say. It's like that meme where it's like, man, that's all you got to say. It is kind of weird how he tells her that Moff Gideon has him, and her immediate answer is just, you'll never find him. It's like, okay, weren't you looking for him? Like, you wanted to find him to kill him to get the Darksaber, but now you're just going to immediately dismiss him right away? Don't give up that easily. And then I like this part where she was, like, calling out Boba Fett, being like, you're not Mandalorian. And then, I don't really like this character. She just kind of, like, she rubs me the wrong way, and she's kind of a jerk to especially to Boba in the scene, and for seemingly no reason. She's like, I didn't know sidekicks were allowed to talk, and it's like, aren't you a sidekick? And then, yeah, he basically points it out, and he's like, well, and again, I don't know what on earth this means at all, but it says, well, if that isn't the Quackta calling the Stifling slimy, like, what? What does any of that even mean? Quackta, like Bacta, but is it like a Bacta tank that holds ducks? Yeah, and then she threatens him, like, you'll be talking through the window of a Bacta tank. Like, what did he do besides point out that you were just hypocritical just now, saying, aren't you a sidekick? Don't talk. And then, like, so she basically started this fight. I don't know why. And then I love that Bo says, save it for the imps. And that made me think, is this the first time? I'm 99% sure this is the first time in any Star Wars movie. And I don't remember if maybe the Clone Wars or Rebels had it, but I don't think any live action Star Wars has said the word imps. And I think that came from the fans, if I remember correctly. Like, that was just their shorthand for Imperials. Or it was the EU, I don't know. One or the other. But it's cool to hear that be used in canon. So yeah, I think this is basically setting up Season 3, or just whenever they're going to return, and them retaking Mandalore. Which they mentioned earlier, in an earlier episode, that it's destroyed. And I remember being like, wait, when did that happen? And then Boba says here that the Empire turned it to glass, and we don't really know why, but apparently it's screwed right now. And then she tells him, you're a disgrace to your armor. And Boba's like, no, it was my father's. And then she's like, don't you mean your donor? You're a clone. And it's like, oof, you're going to really tick him off. So what if he's a clone? His character's been developed in Clone Wars. He was an unaltered clone, so he kind of isn't. I mean, he's not gone through all the same trials that the regular clone troopers have been in. He was raised properly, like, by an actual human. Yeah, she's playing with fire by calling him out like that. And that's interesting. She's like, I've heard your voice thousands of times. And it's like, yeah, she's worked around clones a lot. And then that kicks off a fight between Boba and Koska, but again, she kind of started this. I thought it was weird when he shoots his cable, and it almost looks like it was pretty telegraphed. She puts her arm up to, like, make sure he grabs her arm with the cable. And it's like, come on, you probably could have done a better job of not telegraphing that so hard. And then she's just shooting fire at his face, and it's like a standoff. And then Bo reiterates from the previous episode that they're going to keep the ship that they get after they take it to retake Mandalore. And she's hoping he'll rejoin their efforts, which, yeah, I think that's where the show's going to go. But Din doesn't seem interested at all in that quest, because at this point, the child is his only priority. Like, he's come a long way from just kind of feeling like he was a little bit of a nuisance in the beginning to now this is the only being he cares about. I love this shot. This is a great encapsulation of kind of every era of Star Wars. It's almost like a metaphor for like the unification of the universe across all mediums. You got a Mandalorian gauntlet, which was seen in the Clone Wars, so you got the prequel era, and then Slave One, which was in the prequel and the OT, and then you got a Lambda shuttle, which was primarily in the OT. So it feels like a metaphor for that, for bringing it all together. And someone pointed out, this was pretty funny. They said it feels like when you pull up to someone's house, like a rich person's house, and they got a bunch of nice cars parked out there, like a Lambo and like a Porsche, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. I thought this was kind of weird when Dr. Pershing points out, he's like, your assessment's misleading, and then Kara was like, oh great, an objective opinion. Like, what does that mean? To me, that feels a little bit like, maybe I'm looking too far into it, but it feels like a jab at some of the YouTubers who are like, if you've heard of EFAP, which is Every Frame of Pause, they're a YouTube channel, or it's from this guy Mahler who does really good YouTube work, and they constantly rightfully harp on the difference between like objective and subjective, and point out how there's a difference between like something being objectively good and how you can still like it even if it's objectively bad. So I just thought it was kind of weird that she's like, oh, an objective opinion, like saying that can't be a thing. An opinion is an objective thing. Saying this person has an opinion, yes, that's an objective statement. But the opinion itself that you hold, like the contents of that opinion, are subjective, obviously. So I don't know what the point of that was. It is weird how he's like, oh, this isn't subterfuge, I assure you. Like, obviously, he wouldn't tell them if it was actually subterfuge. That's like a criminal saying, no, I didn't commit that crime. So then they confirm that these are indeed third generation Dark Troopers, and they have nobody inside the suits. They're just straight up droids. And I think we're going to see like Phase 1 and 2 versions in the Bad Batch, because you can see, I think it's a Phase 2 Dark Trooper that you see in the trailer for Bad Batch. And I don't understand, maybe someone can explain this to me. Why do they keep them in cold storage? Like, they say something about they use too much power to be powered on all the time, but why do you have to freeze them? It's a droid. In Episode 1, when they deployed those like thousands of B-1 battle droids, they just like came out on this rack and they deployed them. They didn't have to be frozen. They aren't like living beings. So I'm a little confused about why they need to be in cold storage. Again, weird sayings, skank in the scud pie. I think they've said that before, and it's like they're writing these odd phrases that we've never heard before. That's pretty cool, seeing them side by side in hyperspace. I don't know how that works, like logistically, but like, how would you see each other during that? I don't know. It's a cool visual nonetheless. Him calling it jump space is weird. I've literally never heard anyone say jump space. It's always hyperspace or light speed. This was a pretty cool plan of theirs, like having Boba pretending to try to shoot them down, and he's like purposely missing. And it's like a small detail, but I really enjoyed the sequence where they show the TIE fighters being launched out of that launch tube. I don't know why. I just like seeing the little details and intricacies of like how the Empire operates, and we get to actually see what it looks like for them to launch TIE fighters from their hangar. It's just not something we ever saw in the original trilogy, because I don't think they could pull off the shots. You would just see a Star Destroyer, and then like it would cut away, and then it would cut back to fighters flying. So you never got to see like the inner workings of stuff. I just like the detail of it. Like, something that I think would be cool to see is seeing Star Destroyers like deploying troop transports and like walkers of some sort. They don't have to necessarily be AT-ATs, but like that was something I thought would have been cool in Empire, was to see how they actually deploy those. They got to come out of there somehow, and it would be cool to see the deployment. Yeah, and this was cool how it folded its wings up and it like just barely fit in there. It seems kind of dangerous for the TIE fighters to have that little clearance. Like, why wouldn't they make it bigger? You'd think it would make it big enough to where you could launch more than one at a time. Like, they have to basically wait in line. I know this ship is like a cruiser and it's not a full-size Star Destroyer, but is there really not enough room to have a slightly bigger bay to where they can launch more than one at once? It's basically a giant railgun that like launches the TIE fighters out of it. It's cool. I think that CG right there is a little iffy. Like, that's some of the only time that I've seen CG in this show that doesn't look great, except for later on, which I'll get to. That's pretty cool. I don't think we ever seen that, where Boba, I actually forgot it can do that. Boba rotates his lasers like all the way around and shoots behind him. Like, that's really cool. So then Boba just like yeets himself out of there because he's not needed anymore. He was just the distraction, and we won't see him again until later on. Anyone else think they like got through this way too easily? Like, they just go in here and they just mow down everyone like a knife through butter. These four are just absolutely insane at how good they are at clearing the deck. Like, I get that in canon the stormtroopers are supposed to be conscripts and they're not all that great because they're kind of like mall cops. There's just so many of them that their strength is in numbers, like droids, and they're not like clones who were like all super highly trained. There's just so many stormtroopers that a ton of them are just average Joes that aren't trained very well because the Emperor doesn't care about losing them. They're just cannon fodder to him. Like, I understand all that, but you'd think that some of these stormtroopers would still be at least slightly competent. If they're going to have them all be idiots, then I hope at some point in the show they actually do have, maybe they can focus around a group of stormtroopers that are actually an elite group, because I guarantee there are some like elite teams of stormtroopers, like the 501st. There's got to be some that are really good, or the Bad Batch. So Gideon activates the Dark Troopers. Oh man, that sucks. Stormtrooper just fell through their shields out into space, where he's just gonna freeze to death. It's kind of weird that they don't, like, why aren't those one-way shield? Well, actually, no, never mind. That they need to be two-way for ships to come out too. But you'd think they can hit a button and like turn it, make it one way, or just close it when they're not using it. But that's pretty brutal. Yeah, I mean, look at how easily they're destroying everybody. Okay, I gotta admit, that's really cool. They flew up and from where they were hiding. So these guys are like putting up no resistance, it seems. Or maybe they're just all in shock, so that's why they're standing there. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for them. You'd think these guys would have a little bit more tactics than this. Taking cover, for example. Like, I know some of the stormtroopers in original trilogy, they still took cover. Like the beginning of the movie, you see some of them are hiding behind little ledges and stuff. But in here, they're just standing there and letting themselves get annihilated. Can't really tell how many Dark Troopers there are, but it's got to be at least like several dozens of them. Another weird ammo thing, where like that episode where Din was shooting at those pirates and he ran out of ammo, and I was like, still don't understand. After years of Star Wars knowledge, you'd think I would understand how their ammo works, and I still don't, because he ran out. And then this happens. It's like, how does a gun jam when it's just laser beams? I had the feeling, like, because it's not a bullet where the casing can get stuck in the slide or whatever, and it won't eject. So I'm wondering what mechanism in there is jamming. And then the only thing I can think of is if it's based on like a battery and there's cooling inside, maybe the thing that's jamming is like the mechanisms to cool the barrel. Maybe there's like barrels that switch out once they get too hot in there, and when it jams it just doesn't switch. I don't know. We've never really seen a cross section of inside a blaster, or maybe we have in the EU and I just haven't seen it. You'd think they would start shooting as soon as they saw him, but no, he just goes and closes it, just barely gets his fingers through and opens it. This is very Terminator-esque. Yeah, this whole sequence feels like Terminator 1, to be honest. And I'm wondering, are these things made out of Beskar? Like, did the Empire get their hands on Beskar and use that? Because all these blaster shots are bouncing off of him. This was pretty intense when they're just punching him in the face over and over again, and it's not even affecting him. It's just pushing his helmet into the side of the ship, and it's actually damaging the ship. Again, very Terminator-ish, where he just like lights him on fire and he stands there like Ghost Rider, just completely unaffected. None of the wiring's melting, so it must all be flame resistant. And then he pulls a Sarah Connor and just like shoves this metal rod into its neck and rips its head off. That's definitely something Sarah would do to a Terminator. And then Din hits the button and sends them all out into space. And originally I was like, well, that's kind of lackluster. Like, all that build up with these things and they're just going to get all flushed out after one attacks him, but they come back later. Stop with these weird, like, pseudo curses in the Star Wars universe. Like, what is a mud scuffer? The one insult that I want to see come back was like that I think was the best one still is Carabast from Rebels, when Zeb always goes Carabast. Like, I think that's a good one. Mud scuffer is just kind of weird. And then combining it with Son of a, it's like, in that galaxy, would they have the knowledge of where that comes from? Well, I mean, obviously it doesn't come from Earth because Earth isn't in the Star Wars galaxy. So they're just like mashing together an Earth's saying with a saying from their universe. So it's kind of strange. Yeah, she fixes her jam by smashing it on the ground. Like, I know you can nitpick that, but then again, Han fixes his ship all the time just by hitting it. I mean, I guess it doesn't fix it. It's a temporary thing, but he just punches it and it starts working again. Again, if it's like a matter of like a cooling mechanism inside, and maybe then it actually can fix it because it gets it to move again. So you never know. Yeah, this gun is just ridiculous. It just melts everything. They stand no chance against it. which makes you wonder why more of them don't have those heavy blasters. At least portable ones, because they have the E-webs on the turrets, but you'd think they'd have some that you can carry. This was brutal. You never see something this brutal in Star Wars. He's just choking him out with this Beskar staff, and then he literally snaps his neck. Like, they pull no punches with the violence in this show. I mean, obviously it's not approaching R-rated territory, but it still pushes the line for like PG-13, and it gets up there with stuff you'd see in like Revenge of the Sith. And this jerk is just holding this lightsaber in front of Baby Yoda. See, I'm still calling him Baby Yoda. I'm never. Maybe I should just combine the two and say Baby Grogu, so I can just basically say both at once. I like this line when he's like, "A friendly piece of advice: assume that I know everything." I really like this actor. I hope his character sticks around for a long time. I still haven't seen Breaking Bad. I know it's an amazing show, but that's kind of where he exploded onto the scene, and that's where he became the most popular. And then ever since then, he's done a lot of villain roles, especially recently. Like, he was a villain in The Boys, and then now he's a villain here, and then he's going to be the main villain character in Far Cry 6. So he's getting a lot of roles. And then he tells him that if you have this sword, you can lay claim to the throne, which I guess that informs all the like casual Star Wars fans of and all the normies, because if you're like a hardcore fan and you've seen Clone Wars, you would know that already. So it's good that like this show has been a great backdoor pilot for those two shows, and I think the trending charts on Disney Plus, Clone Wars and Rebels, are always up there. So I'm really glad that this show is actually bringing attention to those shows from people that otherwise would have dismissed them as, oh, that's just a cartoon, oh, that's a kid show, why should I care? Because those shows deserve, especially Clone Wars, deserve a lot more attention. Especially now that they're incorporating plot lines from that started in that show. Yeah, he shouldn't believe him at all when he says he's already got what he wants from him. Like, if that was the case, he wouldn't have him here still. He would have just let him go. He would have been like, yeah, just keep him, Mando. We got his blood. So this is kind of a weird thing for Din to believe. Again, I don't know if this is a subtle reference to the coming First Order or not, because they keep using the word order, and I mean, maybe it's nothing, and I'm thinking too far into it, but he says that he has rare properties that have the potential to bring order back to the galaxy, and he kind of emphasizes order, and it's like, okay, are you like subtly hinting at the First Order or what? I don't think so, because that's still like 25 years or so after this, so I think it's way too soon for that. And again, we don't know how much, if any, retconning is going to happen, but we'll see. Yeah, why you believe in him, Din? He's not going to just let you take him, and he thinks he's just going to let them go their separate ways. Like, really? Yeah, we all saw that coming. Gideon goes ham on him. Like, it's cool to see him fight with a lightsaber having no force abilities. It's just a guy that, it's like Finn, where it's just a guy that gets his hands on this weapon and he just uses it as basically a baseball bat. He just beats the crap on Din, even though it doesn't really do anything to him with his armor. This is interesting. When he holds the Darksaber against the Beskar staff long enough, it starts to turn orange. So part of me thinks it's just lightsaber resistant and not lightsaber proof. So if you hold it against it long enough, I think it'll actually start to melt through. I like this shot where it's cutting open the side of the wall and sparking. It's pretty cool. Interesting that Din would spare his life. I like how he's like, oh, you're sparing my life. This should be interesting. That's pretty cool, seeing Din with the Darksaber. It's like that artwork from Clone Wars where you see the leader, the Mandalore with the apostrophes, and he's holding the Darksaber on that ancient artwork. Could be a hint at Din's future. Maybe he'll end up ruling. I don't know. I wonder if this show will come to like almost like a Game of Thrones style feud about who gets to rule. So this confused me. It's like, why don't you kill him now and take it? But then he says it's yours now. The Darksaber belongs to you. And then Din's like, no, it belongs to her now. But then he's like, no, it must be won in battle. She would need to defeat you in combat. And he's like, nah, I yield, it's yours. And then he's like, nah, it doesn't work that way. What's confusing about that is I'm like pretty sure there's a scene in Rebels where she just gives Sabine the sword. Like, Sabine just gets it. There's no battle that has to be done. So I'm a little confused by that. Yep, I think everyone saw this coming, that they were going to come back. Also, I forgot to mention, for some reason there's basically dubstep that plays every time we see the Dark Troopers. Like, it's pretty close to dubstep, and it's kind of weird to hear dubstep in Star Wars. It doesn't really bother me, it's just very odd. I love the tension building they did in the scene where they're just keep pounding the door over and over and over again while they're just all stuck. And this is when I started to think, okay, somebody is going to show up, and I think I know who. Obviously, a Jedi is going to show up here. It has to happen because you see that on one side of the door, all of our heroes are stuck. And on the other side, there's dozens of droids that that will just annihilate them. So I'm like, there's got to be a Deus Ex Machina here, and it's kind of a Deus Ex Machina, but it kind of isn't, because this is payoff from what happened a few episodes ago where Grogu reached out for a Jedi. So if that scene didn't happen, then yes, I would call this a Deus Ex Machina. But it is still a little bit in the fact that he came right at the perfect time. But there is precedent for it, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So yeah, he's just like, yeah, everyone in this room's screwed. I like how it's got this like methodical, like almost a rhythmic pounding. It's like the music's going with it. It's just like boom, 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 because they keep wanting to get the door open. It's weird. None of them have like some kind of saw attachment or like a bomb that they can use. So, okay, so this is the moment, the big moment. And you know what? I'm gonna recreate my reaction here, or at least try to how this scene played out for me. So here's my attempt at a dramatization of what happened with me. An X-wing. Is that who I think it is? No, it can't be. There's probably more of them. It's probably Trapper Wolf. Oh no, she says there's only one. There's gotta be more, right? Oh, they're not saying who they are. Don't give me hope. Don't give me hope. It's a Black Hood. Does anybody else wear black hoods? It could still be Cal Kestis. It could be, I don't know, Mace. I highly doubt it. Come on, it's got to be him, right? Oh, they're teasing us on the screen. It's green. There's no way it's not him. Oh my God, it's the robot hand. And then from then on, I knew, and I got emotional, like I think everyone did. It's just such a beautifully done reveal. The slow buildup of, like, giving you detail, and it's like slowly revealing who it is. It's so well done. Props to the director of this episode. Like, it could have been done in a much more lackluster way, but it was just so well done. I didn't realize at first that, I guess some people realized immediately if you looked closely that the X-Wing had Red 5's markings on it. I didn't see that detail, or would have, I don't know if I could have told you that it was Red 5 from that, but so some people got that immediately. But yeah, like the alarm starts beeping, and my heart started going like a mile a minute from here on out for the rest of the episode. Because I was waiting for this moment. Everyone was. It's like, okay, there's got to be a moment where a Jedi comes and saves them. Because it's called The Rescue. And we've been waiting multiple episodes now, like weeks, to be like, who is it? So my heart starts beating out of my chest when it starts beeping, and then when I'm slowly realizing what's happening. And I'm just in shock and disbelief. Like as seen in the dozens and dozens of reaction videos, I had a similar reaction. I didn't record it, but I made another video of like my immediate reaction to it, and it was just tears of joy, literally. See, I like how she underplays it like, oh, one X-Wing? Great, we're saved. I mean, if you knew who was on that X-Wing, yeah, you guys are. And then just the building of the mystery, I love how they did that. It's like they say identify yourself, and the person didn't, and then you see them land, and I like the use of the security camera. It's so well done. Like another director could have just filmed it without like the security cameras and just filmed the X-Wing coming in, and like there's so many ways you could have directed this sequence, and I think they just did it. They just nailed it. They dragged out the mystery and suspense. It's so well. And then yeah, Grogu's ear lifted like a dog. When like a dog hears its name or something, they lift their ear, and so it's like, oh yeah, he can sense that it's a Jedi, and that the person he called is here. And then more tension building is like, why did they stop? And then you see the black cloak. And it's like, holy crap, this is happening, isn't it? But then also, you still have doubt in the back of your mind, because that was me. Because like I was hopeful, like, please do it. But then I had this nagging voice in my head, like, they're not going to do it. It wouldn't, like, they'd have to do CG. They'd have to recast. I don't think they'll do it. So it was like this war in my mind of, they won't do it, but I also really want them to. So at this point, I'm like, it could still be Ahsoka, maybe. But why would they make it this dramatic and this much of a suspenseful reveal if it was just another character we've seen it already? Yeah, and then more security camera footage of this, whoever this was, at the like not knowing, was so cool seeing them do this. And Bo-Katan's like, a Jedi? And it's like, yeah, do you see what he's doing? Obviously. And then the green saber comes on, and then you're basically 99% sure, because yeah, Ezra has Ezra has a green blade, but it would not have had the same impact if it was Ezra, because imagine all the people watching this show that hasn't watched Rebels. They'd be like, okay, they just built all this up to a guy I don't know who is. Like, it would not have had the same impact. This was just incredible. Like, Luke finally getting his glory moment that he's deserved and that we have waited 37 years for. I mean, I haven't personally, but there's people alive today that were they're probably in their 60s and they were transported back 50 years and they're back being 6 again, and I can't imagine how they felt. I mean, even me, who's been waiting at least 20 years for this to happen, just pure emotional freak out. And then you see the gloved hand, and then you know for sure, okay, this is definitely Luke. Like, this seals the deal for you. And look at Moff's face. He's horrified. Luke, I think, is probably the boogeyman to the Empire at this point, because they know the stories. He's taken out the Emperor and Vader and took down the Death Star 1, and his friends helped to take out the second one. Well, and him. He was on Endor. But, so he's like the Baba Yaga to them. So, of course, he's going to be horrified by him showing up. This whole scene was a great mirror to the Rogue One scene where all the rebels are screaming and freaking out while Darth Vader's killing everything and coming for them. This is a amazing reflection, like reversal of that, where this bad guy is horrified by what's happening and Luke is just mowing down these droids. Basically, the moral of the story is, if there's a Skywalker in a hallway, you better run. And then so he takes his chance to try to shoot at them. And this was kind of horrifying. He points the gun at Baby Yoda and tries to kill him, and Din jumps in front of it. And this was dark too. Again, like, the show continues to show that it's not afraid to get dark. He puts the gun to his chin. He's about to blow his own brains out because he knows there's no way out of this. And then Cara Dune knocks it out of his hand. But like I said, I'm glad he's going to continue being in the show because I really like that actor. And I love this too. Grogu just puts his hand on the screen because he can feel that it's the presence that he talked to before. Man, what a sequence. This is something I'll never forget. Like, as a Star Wars fan, it was probably the most unforgettable moment I've ever seen. Just seeing something that we've been waiting so long to see. Like, the Boba Fett thing, yeah, that was another thing. But I was thinking that we would get... Like, I was hoping for the Boba return. And I'm like, if that's what we get this season, we don't get Luke, I'll be happy. But the fact that we got both, like, man, I couldn't be happier. And then the way he fights is, like, so graceful. It's like, it's so cool. It's not like Anakin, where Anakin starts to, like, fight with, you can see his anger coming through, and he's more, like, rageful. But Luke is just so graceful when he fights. He does this thing where he, like, puts the blade behind his back and does the force push. He's integrating force push and pull really well with this. And the way he handles a lightsaber, it feels like Return of the Jedi Luke. So I don't know if they looked at that old footage and looked at the choreography to try to match it, but they just did an immaculate job. And whoever they had as the stunt guy to do it, because I don't think Mark Hamill, who I'll get to, the fact that he's actually playing him at least to a certain extent. I don't think he's like 69 or 70. I doubt he did all this, but it doesn't even matter to me. Just seeing this was so amazing. And he keeps the hood on for most of it, which is understandable. And that shade of green is so perfect. It's not like his green on there, or the green that he has of his lightsaber is a darker green, and it's not like, it's different than the more lighter green lightsabers like Yoda and Qui-Gon's. I just love that color. Man, he picks up the head of a dark trooper and throws it at another one. That's amazing.